Hello, everybody. This is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Part 5, Chapter 13. Mikolov sold Vronsky the little picture, and also decided to paint Anna's portrait. He came on the appointed day and began his work, which, even on the 5th sitting, struck Vronsky by its resemblance and by its very delicate feeling for the beauty of his subject. One must know her and love her as I love her, to get her gentle and spiritual expression, thought Vronsky. And yet he found in Mikolov's portrait exactly that very expression. I've been struggling so long and never get ahead, said Vronsky, referring to his portrait of Anna, and he has only to look at her to paint her. That's what I call a knowing one's profession. That will come, said Golenishev to console him, for in his eyes Vronsky had talent, and moreover had a training which ought to wake in him the feeling for art. But Golenishev's conviction for this regard were corroborated by the need that he felt for Vronsky to praise him and sympathize with him in his own work. It was a fair exchange. In the house of strangers, and especially in Vronsky's palazzo, Mikolov was an entirely different man from what he was at home and in his studio. He showed himself respectful almost to affectation, as though he were anxious to avoid all intimacy with people whom at heart he did not regard. He always called Vronsky "Your Excellency." And in spite of Vronsky's and Anna's repeated invitations, he would never stay to dinner or come except at the hours for the sitting. Anna was even more genial to him than to the others. Vronsky was more than polite to him and was anxious for his criticism on his paintings. Golenishev never lost an opportunity of inculcating sound theories of art. Still Mikolov kept his distance. But Anna felt that he liked to look at her, even though he avoided all conversation with her. When Vronsky desired his opinion on his work, he remained obstinately silent and looked at the pictures without ever a word, and he took no pains to conceal the weariness which Golenishev's sermons caused him. This mute hostility produced a painful impression, and relief was felt by all when the sittings were over, and Mikolov, having completed an admirable portrait, ceased to come to the palazzo. Golenishev was the first to express a thought which all had been thinking, and the painter was envious of Vronsky. What makes him furious is to see a wealthy man, of high position, a count, and apparently they're all vexed at that, reaching without trouble the skill to paint as well, if not better, than he. He's devoted his life to painting, but you have a mental culture which people like Mikolov never succeed in attaining. Vronsky, though he took the painter's part, felt at heart that his friend was right, for it seemed to him extremely natural that a man in an inferior position should envy him. The two portraits of Anna might have shown him the difference between him and Mikolov. It was only after Mikolov's portrait was done that he began to see it. He felt it sufficiently to lay his own aside, saying that it was a superfluity, and he devoted himself wholly to his medieval painting. He himself and Golenishev and Anna especially felt that it was good, because it resembled, more than all that Mikolov did, the works of the old masters. Mikolov, meantime, in spite of the pleasure which he took in doing Anna's portrait, was glad to be free of Golenishev's discourses and Vronsky's paintings. Of course, it was impossible to prevent Vronsky from amusing himself. He and all other dilettantes have unfortunately the right to paint as much as they please, but he suffered in consequence of this amateurish occupation. No one can prevent a man from making for himself a big wax doll and kissing it. But if this man takes his doll and sits in the presence of lovers and makes his caresses before them, it becomes unpleasant to the lover. Vronsky's painting produced on him a similar feeling. It was ridiculous and disgusting and pitiable and vexatious. Vronsky's enthusiasm for painting in the Middle Ages was, however, for a short duration. His art instinct was strong enough to prevent him from finishing his painting, and he recognized sadly that his faults, at first apparently trifling, grew more and more grievous as he went on. He was like Golenishev, who willingly nurtured himself on illusions, and imagined that he was collecting materials and storing up ripened thoughts, because he felt that there was a void in his mind. But while Golenishev grew bitter and irritable, Vronsky remained perfectly calm. Incapable of self-deception, he simply gave up his painting, with his habitual decision of character, without seeking to justify himself or to offer explanations. But without this occupation, life in this little Italian city quickly became intolerable. The palazzo suddenly appeared old and dirty. The spots on the curtains assumed a sordid aspect. the cracks in the mosaics, the broken stucco of the cornices, the eternal Golenishev, the Italian professor, the German tourist, all became unspeakably wearisome. Anna was surprised by this abrupt disenchantment, but willingly consented to return to Russia to live in the country. Vronsky wanted to pass through Petersburg to make business arrangements with his brother, and Anna was anxious to see her son. They decided to spend the summer on Vronsky's large patrimonial estate.